Landlocked salmon, they have fast become fly fishermen's one of one of the most favorite sought after cold water fish, freshwater fish species because of the acrobatic leaps out of the water. When hooking on to some of these landlocked salmon in rivers, lakes and ponds during open water fishing, you can have quite a fight. These landlocked salmon are known to leap a foot or more out of the water and be very acrobatic and roll and tumble. They put on a really big fight and put on a show for fishermen. The fishermen become very addicted to fishing for these things. And they're really an iconic fish species for the state of Maine. People travel from all over the world to come to like the state of Maine and to Labrador, Canada, Quebec, and Labrador, Canada, and to the northeastern part of the United States to target the landlocked salmon. Some landlocked salmon in very healthy bodies of water, like that of maybe Moosehead Lake, have been known to live as old as 9 years old, anywhere between 7 and 9 years old. And on rare occasions, biologists, scientists have discovered some landlocked salmon living to be as old as 10 years old. Depends on the healthiness of the body of water and the health of the fish, so forth, so on. And your landlocked salmon, they're they become sexually mature around 3 years old, three and up. So your par, your baby landlocked salmon known as par, they need to make it to at least 2 to 3 years old, 3 years old, minimally to be able to spawn, to become spawning adults, so that they can migrate the lake systems and travel the streams and rivers that connect the lake systems to do their Atlantic salmon thing, because they, in their mind, in their brains, they still think they're Atlantic salmon. They still think they need to go to the ocean or be ocean-like salmon, so forth, so on. How neat is that? Hey, did you know, everybody, that landlocked salmon, they are actually an Atlantic salmon? How many people actually knew that? They're a landlocked Atlantic salmon. What do lake trout, brook trout, and landlocked salmon have in common? Let me know in the comments what lake trout, brook trout, and landlocked salmon have in common. What's the commonalities among these three species of fish? Uh, and you can tell me in the comments that maybe they all live in Moosehead Lake. Actually, they're they're all cold water specialists. All three of these, the landlocked salmon, brook trout, lake trout. They they're native to the state of Maine 20,000 years ago, or like during the receding during the last glacial period, the last receding glacial time of the ice age, for like thousands of years ago. The receding glaciers carved out the landscape and geography of the state of Maine and left behind pristine, cold, deep basin, really deep basin lakes and ponds, and left behind real pristine, cold, highly oxygenated mountain streams, rivers, and obviously all these different fish species were created. However, you believe they were created, whether it be by God or just science. If you only firmly believe 100% in science, that regardless of what your beliefs are and how the different fish species came to be, well, all we need to know is that there were lake trout, there were brook trout, there were salmon, landlocked salmon, and many other hundreds thousands of different types of freshwater and fish species, and fish species living in the ocean and so forth. So now, when it comes to landlocked salmon, hence the name landlocked salmon, they were given that name because the receding glaciers left a lot of them landlocked, trapped in landlocked ponds, streams. Landlocked ponds and lakes. And the landlocked salmon that we know today still have Atlantic salmon tendencies. They still will want to navigate in streams and rivers during their spawning. And another thing too, I asked everybody, what do lake trout, brook trout, and landlocked salmon have in common? What are the commonalities among lake trout, brook trout, and landlocked salmon? There's many of them. And I want you to tell me in the comments, type away. So that I mentioned a couple things that they're all native to the state of Maine, and how that they came to inhabit the state of Maine's lakes, ponds, rivers, stuff is because they were created as by by a higher power, right? By science, by God, by Himself. We were created, and there was the Ice Age, right? The last bit of the Ice Age during the last receding glaciers, as they were thawing and moving and flowing through the landscape. They were carving out valleys and ravines, and they were eroding and pushing soils and rocks up to form mountains and hills. The receding glaciers was forming the geography of the state of Maine and leaving behind really cold, deep water basin ponds and lakes, and trapping Atlantic salmon. Atlantic salmon were trapped inland because of the receding glaciers, and they went on to survive and to flourish, and hence the name landlocked salmon that they were given at some time, that as they were discovered by early settlers, early scientists, early fish enthusiasts, early naturalists, as they discovered these fish species. Landlocked salmon were discovered, were found, and it was found out that they had a lot of tendencies of that of Atlantic salmon. And another commonality that the brook trout, lake trout, and landlocked salmon have is that they're all three are fall spawning fish. They do not spawn in the spring like that of largemouth bass, smallmouth bass, bluegill, stuff like it's crappie, like a lot of your warm water species of fish that form in the spring. That's not what salmon, lake trout, brook trout do. They spawn in the fall. Excuse me. Let me clear my throat. Landlocked salmon will spawn from September through November. The female salmon will form reds. They make depressions in the gravelly, sandy bottoms of inlets or outlets of streams coming and going out of ponds and lakes that they live in. The landlocked salmon still want to navigate and find their way up streams, inlets, and outlets to spawn. They find their way into shallower waters where the bottoms are sandy and gravelly. that that actually has the environment that's favored by the landlocked salmon for spawning, for digging out their redds, their depressions, divots in the ground, for them to lay their eggs, and the males come and fertilize the eggs, and the eggs incubate all winter long, and they're hatched in the spring, and then par are born. Landlocked salmon babies known as par. They, yeah, and they'll and your par, your baby landlocked salmon, they'll grow up to mature, and once 3 years old, the salmon they'll be able to reproduce, mate, so reproduce more salmon, so forth, so on. Now, landlocked salmon, they're cold water specialists. They too, like the brook trout, lake trout, they require a lot of dissolved oxygen, temps at 60 degrees or lower, and they will grow prolifically and grow big and mature quicker in waters with a lot of smelt. They really love the rainbow smelt. Rainbow smelt and other minnows and other fish species stuff were native to these cold water, deep, deep ponds and lakes that like that of lake trout, brook trout, landlocked salmon. All right, do you run more than 5 trail cameras that run off of AA batteries? Maybe you run 10, 12 or more cameras that run off of AA batteries. Are you sick and tired of burning a hole in the pocket, of constantly needing to buy batteries after batteries after batteries? I'm here to tell you, with this X60 Pro Max Guard Pro trail camera with the rechargeable lithium-ion battery pack, once you charge this battery pack full, you'll easily get 3 or 4 plus months more run time with this camera than you would with conventional AA batteries you'd buy from the store. So you could easily get 6 plus months of run time on a full charge. So never have to break the bank again, never have to burn a hole in your pocket spending every bit of spare cash you got on AA batteries ever again. Don't worry about that. This X60 Pro Max camera with the solar panel pack is going to save you a ton of money, especially when I tell you today I'm offering you 15% discount code to get 15% off your purchase from the Guard Pro website. Go to the description below this video and you can click on the link to go to the Guard Pro website. Don't forget to copy the 15% off code that I'm offering you in my description below. Copy that 15% off code in the description below before you click on the link to go to the Guard Pro website to choose what camera you want. You could choose the Wi-Fi camera. You could choose any model cellular trail camera that they have. You can go to the website and choose and pick and choose and browse all the cameras that they offer and choose whatever camera. So go to the description below the video, copy the 15% off code that you need, click the Guard Pro website link to go into the Guard Pro website, browse the cameras, choose whichever cameras you want to purchase, and get 15% off your purchase today with the link and the 15% off code in the description below. And these smaller fish species like shiners, smelts, and so forth, so on, and like and perch and burbot, or not burbot, whitefish and Cisco and things like that. They all became food for your bigger, food for your fish that can grow very large, that can grow to like 5 or more pounds and grow over 20 inches in length. Landlocked salmon can exceed 20 inches and exceed 3 to 4 or 5 pounds, and especially in waters like that of Moosehead Lake that have a lot of favorable food items like the rainbow smelt. They still act like Atlantic salmon, which they pretty much are, except they can't, uh, navigate to the ocean. They're landlocked. But the landlocked salmon, they're known to travel the networks of connected freshwater ponds and lakes and streams that all connect in a web. So you could have like you have Moosehead Lake, and you have a lot of different streams or rivers coming and going out of and into Moosehead Lake. And the landlocked salmon, they'll swim up some of these rivers and streams and swim down some of these rivers and streams, and they'll swim the lake, and they'll go up a river that connects to another lake, and then from that lake to another pond and so forth. So on the landlocked salmon, they're known to travel these network webs of freshwater, landlocked ponds and lakes that aren't connected to the ocean in any way, shape, or form. They can't find their way to the ocean, hence the name landlocked salmon. But they're still going about their daily lives as if they're still an Atlantic salmon, because they still, in their minds, are still feeling like an Atlantic salmon. That, so I mean, how neat is that? It's just so cool. The history of these fish is just amazing. It's be, just always amazes me at learning these cool historical fit, like learning about the history of all these like fish, like the lake trout, brook trout, salmon. Now, landlocked salmon, they they've had some trials through the years, and they said to this day they still do. You've got to picture now back in the 1700, early 1700s, late 1700 into the early 1800s, and on to till and on to today, to current times. There's always been logging operations, and what happens when a logging outfit goes into a forest and drops trees. They're disturbing the land. They're creating erosion and disturbing the soils. They're disturbing the mountain streams and lakes and ponds. They're leaving roads behind so that humans can easily access these once pristine, uh, rem- like uninhabited areas of the forests and mountains that had native landlocked salmon and other species like like brook trout and, and lake trout and so forth, so on. And so when the logging industry was booming, it introduced pollutants to the waters that landlocked salmon inhabited, and introduced other things to the water bodies that caused the waters to warm and to deplete the dissolved oxygen, and invasives were introduced to a lot of bodies of waters, like invasive aquatic plants, invasive fish species that the landlocked salmon had to compete with, and probably didn't win out and didn't win over the other fish. And so what happened as time went on, and this still happens today, unfortunately, some lakes and ponds that once had a fishery of landlocked salmon, they no longer do. And so this is where you have your right side and left side here. This is where you have a very highly debatable, arguable topic, and that is hatchery raised and landlocked salmon versus native landlocked salmon. And this is this debatable argument has gone on for decades, for years, on whether or not it's a good thing to stock fish to lakes and ponds, or to leave the lakes and ponds be, let them be, let them just go about their natural being as they are, as they be. But see, your biologists, your fisheries biologists, and your inland fisheries, and your Maine Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife, and the wardens, biologists, scientists, the general public, like you and I, we can all work together as stewards of these bodies of waters, and to help the fisheries, to help the hatcheries, to raise landlocked salmon and other fish like brook trout and lake trout, and so forth, so on. Other fish that the Department of Inland Fish and Wildlife, the biologists, want to stock into certain bodies of water to help bring back that fishery of landlocked salmon or brook trout or lake trout that in these lakes and ponds that are being stocked with these fish, they once had native populations that were flourishing, but because of logging and human encroachment, human populations booming, uh, you can just imagine, use your imagination of all the things that humans have done throughout hundreds of years that have polluted and disturbed bodies of waters that once harbored native fish species. They It wiped them out. But to this day, now we can enjoy, we can go out there with our sons and daughters and as fishermen, fishermen. And we can still go to lakes and ponds that and fish for the landlocked salmon and catch landlocked salmon and enjoy our day fishing because of these conservation projects in play here, because of the conservation model that is, have sustainable, healthy working hatcheries with healthy populations of landlocked salmon par that are being raised, taken care of, nourished to adulthood or to that size that's favorable for stocking, and then hence the stocking of lakes and ponds with landlocked salmon, so forth, so on. I mean, landlocked salmon, they're a famous cold water, freshwater species of fish in the Rangeley area, Moosehead Lake area, Rangeley area, Sebago Lake area. Their landlocked salmon can be found in a lot of lakes and ponds across the state of Maine. Bryson, do you want to come say hi to the folks that joined me live? You want to come say goodnight to Shorty? I bought my bow buck from last year, my Halloween bow buck. Excuse me, everybody. My family, they're on their way to bed, so I'm saying goodnight. Trying to get my son Bryson to come say hi to everybody.
Oh, you got one?
Well, what do landlocked salmon like to eat, everybody? If you guessed insects, you're right. If you guessed minnows, you're right. How about small perch and chubs?
You
And
got one, Jay?
the landlocked salmon like that of brook trout, lake
Another
trout,
salmon.
they're known to eat zooplankton, phytoplankton, like eat like algae and certain zooplankton, phytoplanktons. That, that by doing that, by fish eating that sort of stuff, it helps with their coloration and the looks of the way they look. They're a lot of how fish look is obviously based on genetics passed down the line, and obviously what they eat and and the health of the body of water that they're living in. Male landlocked salmon, they can grow a hook jaw, and they can get very, very bright colored. The Their male landlocked salmon can get some bright reds and oranges in them, and just be vibrantly colorful and look beautiful and breathtaking, and get that hook jaw thing going on. And what really brings that out in the male landlocked salmon is obviously their spawning time of year, the September through November, the fall spawning. They The male landlocked salmon, just like that of the male brook trout, the male lake trout, they want to be intimidating to their suitors, intimidating to the other rival salmon or the other rival brook trout, lake trout, and so forth, so on. They want to be intimidating. They want to win the spawning rights to being able to fertilize the eggs that the female left behind in the reds. A red is a depression, like little in the sandy, rocky soils of the shallows, lakes and streams connected to the lakes and ponds that they live in, where the female they come along with their caudal fin. The caudal fin is the name of the tail fin connected to the caudal peduncle. The caudal peduncle is the narrow part of the butt end of the fish, and off of the caudal peduncle is the caudal fin, and above and up from that is the adipose fin, and all your dorsal fins and so forth, so on. Then your upper and lower maxillaries, and then these are just some Yeah, I'm just naming off some scientific um, names of the body parts of the fish, right? So, yeah, so you can picture this, right? Use your imagination. Picture the female landlocked salmon swimming along in the stream, the shallow stream connected to Moosehead Lake, and she finds the suitable spot, a sandy, rock, kind of pebbly, gravelly like area in the stream. She'll take her caudal fin and she'll use her belly and her caudal peduncle, and she'll use her tail and body to brush away the sandy, gravelly gravel to form a depression or a red. And then she'll lay eggs there, and the male landlocked salmon will come along and fertilize those eggs, and then they incubate all winter long, and they hatch in the spring, and then what are born are little salmon par. How neat is that? What do you know about landlocked salmon? What what's your most memorable favorite fishing experience that you've had with landlocked salmon? Let me know in the comments. Love to hear from all of you. So chat away, type away. Let me and the viewers know what some of your most memorable experiences are that you've had fishing for landlocked salmon.